وسع كل شيء علما.
ليس الغريب غريب الشام واليمن، إن الغريب غريب اللحد والكفن، إن الغريب له حق.
إن الحمد لله نحمده ونستعينه ونستغفره ونعوذ بالله من شرور أنفسنا وسيئات أعمالنا، من يهده الله فلا مضل له ومن يضلل فلا هادي له، وأشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله صلوات الله وسلامه عليه. All praise belongs to Allah. We praise Him, we seek forgiveness from Him, and we seek refuge with Him. We seek help from Him, and we seek refuge with Him from the evil of ourselves and the sins of our deeds. Whomever Allah guides, no one can misguide, and whomever Allah misguides, no one can guide. I testify that there is no true God except Allah, alone without any partners, and that Muhammad is His slave and messenger, sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sallam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Today we continue with our Usool thalatha, the three principles, the second lesson in Iman Center in Birmingham in the UK. Today we have very good news. We have one of our brothers, he has become Muslim from Russia. We have some guests from other countries. Allah reward all of them and make all of us strong upon his religion and make us all brothers for him. Today, last week we stopped at the first principle, because before that we looked at the introduction that the Sheikh, the author Muhammad bin Abdul Wahhab rahimahullah made, and I spoke a little bit very briefly about his biography, and also we took the first principle of the three. So what I will do is that I will go back a little bit, and we will take the first principle and then go from there, inshallah. The usual way I do my lessons is that I read it in Arabic, then I translate it into English, and if it requires any explanation, then I try to explain without going too much into detail, because what we need to know is to understand the basics of our religion, the basics of Islam, before we can go to higher levels of knowledge. Anyone who tries to circumvent that and try to go to the highest level of knowledge before he has managed to master and understand the basics, then he will be forced to come back again to the basics, because he will not be able to understand many things. So the Sheikh said rahimahullah, فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكَ مَا الْأُصُولُ الثَّلَاثَةُ الَّتِي يَجِبُ عَلَى الْإِنسَانِ مَعْرِفَتُهَا. And if it is said to you, what are the three principles that are obligatory to be known upon the Muslim? فَقُلْ مَعْرِفَةُ الْعَبْدِ رَبَّهُ وَدِينَهُ وَنَبِيَّهُ مُحَمَّدًا صَلَّى اللَّهُ عَلَيْهِ وَسَلَّمَ. Then say, it is to know, for the slave to know his Lord, his religion, and his Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكَ مَنْ رَبُّكَ. And if it is said to you, who is your Lord, فَقُلْ رَبِّيَ اللَّهُ الَّذِي رَبَّانِي. Then say, my Lord is Allah, who has sustained me and has given me life, وَرَبَّى جَمِيعَ الْعَالَمِينَ, and has done the same to all of the worlds, بِنِعَمِهِ, with his favors. وَهُوَ مَعْبُودِي لَيْسَ لِي مَعْبُودٌ سِوَاهُ. And he is the one I must worship, and there is no one else who I worship. And here I mentioned last time, as the scholars teach us, taken from the Quran, that the Sheikh rahimahullah, may Allah have mercy on him, connected the rububiyyah, the lordship of Allah, to the fact that we must worship Him alone. And that's what Allah says in the Quran. He says, who created the heavens and the earth, and who made light and light of the day and the darkness of the night, so that you may have rest during the night, and you may be able to seek provision for yourselves during the day, and made rivers flow for you. Everything that is upon the earth, He reminds us of His favors, including our own bodies. Then He says, then worship Allah after all of these ayat in many places in the Quran, and we will inshallah look at the meaning of worship very in a short period of time. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for that is the saying of Allah, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. The saying of Allah, all praise belongs to Allah, the Lord of the worlds. And of course this is taken, as you know, from Surah Al-Fatiha, which in English means the opening. I want to actually thank all the effort that our brothers are doing, especially Uncle, because when I came here today I found all these desks, small desks here, ready for recording, and the pens and paper which the students should bring with themselves. But sometimes we forget. So Alhamdulillah, we have someone to give it to us. Because the tools of the student are pen and paper. So if you don't have the tools, you can't do anything. Because this thing that we think records everything, which is our memory, is very weak. And maybe after 1 day, 2 days, a week, we will forget everything that maybe was said. So for that reason, it's good for us to write down things that we are hearing. So the dalil, the proof for that is the saying of Allah from Surah Al-Fatiha, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. And everything besides Allah is alam, is creation. وَأَنَا وَاحِدْ مِنْ ذَلِكَ الْعَالَمِ, and I am a part of that creation. فَإِذَا قِيلَ لَكَ بِمَا عَرَفْتَ رَبَّكَ, and if it is said to you, how do you know your Lord? فَقُلْ بِآيَاتِهِ وَمَخْلُقَاتِهِ, then say, through His signs and through His creation. وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ اللَّيْلُ وَالنَّهَارِ, and from His signs are the night and the day. وَالشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرِ, and the sun and the moon. وَمِنْ مَخْلُقَاتِهِ السَّمَاوَاتُ السَّبْعُ وَالْأَرَضُونَ السَّبْعُ, and from His creation are the 7 heavens and the 7 earths. وَمَا فِيهِنَّ وَمَا بَيْنَهُمَا, and whatever is in them and whatever is between them. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for that is the saying of Allah the Most High, وَمِنْ آيَاتِهِ اللَّيْلُ وَالنَّهَارِ, and from His signs are the night and the day. وَالشَّمْسُ وَالْقَمَرِ, and the sun and the moon. لَا تَسْجُدُوا لِلشَّمْسِ وَلَا لِلْقَمَرِ, do not do sujood, prostrate, touch with your forehead the ground, to the sun, nor do it to the moon. وَاسْجُدُوا لِلَّهِ الَّذِي خَلَقَهُنَّ إِن كُنْتُمْ إِيَّاهُ تَعْبُدُونَ, but rather do sujood to Allah who created them, if you indeed worship Him alone. And I mentioned before that sujood in the Quran can mean submission. Sujood in the Quran can mean submission, that you do not rebel against Allah through your own choice. And it can also mean worshipping. So it's not allowed, as I mentioned last week, to do sujood or ruku' to anyone but Allah, to bow or to do sujood, prostration, to anyone but Allah, even if it's like a sign of greeting or something like this. وَقَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and also the saying of Allah, إِنَّ رَبَّكُمُ اللَّهُ الَّذِي خَلَقَ السَّمَاوَاتِ وَالْأَرْضَ فِي 6 أَيَّامٍ ثُمَّ اسْتَوَى عَلَى الْعَرْشِ يُغْشِي اللَّيْلَ النَّهَارَ يَطْلُبُهُ حَثِيثًا وَالشَّمْسَ وَالْقَمَرَ وَالنُّجُومَ مُسَخَّرَاتٍ بِأَمْرِهِ أَلَا لَهُ الْخَلْقُ وَالْأَمْرُ تَبَارَكَ اللَّهُ رَبُّ الْعَالَمِينَ, which means He brings the night. Indeed, your Lord is Allah who created the heavens and the earth in 6 days. Then He rose over the throne. He brings the night as a cover over the day, seeking it rapidly, meaning following it very fast. And He created the sun, the moon, the the stars, subjected to His command. Surely His is the creation and the commandment. Blessed be Allah, the Lord of the worlds. So that's where we stopped after these ayat, and today we continue. The Sheikh said, the author rahimahullah, وَالرَّبُّ هُوَ الْمَعْبُودِ, and the Lord is the one who must be worshipped. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the word dalil in Arabic means something or someone who shows the way to something. So when we use the word dalil in Islam, it means proof for what we are saying or doing. So Islam is based on proofs. We don't just say believe in something without giving proofs to the people, because Allah has told us like this. So the proof for what He said, that the Lord is the one who must be worshipped, is the saying of Allah, وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى يَا أَيُّهَا النَّاسُ وَاعْبُدُوا رَبَّكُمْ, O people, worship your Lord, الَّذِي خَلَقَكُمْ, who created you, وَالَّذِينَ مِنْ قَبْلِكُمْ, and who created those before you, لَعَلَّكُمْ تَتَّقُونَ, so that you may fear Him, or you attain piety, you may attain taqwa. الذي جعل لكم الأرض فراشا والسماء بناء وأنزل من السماء ماء فأخرج به من الثمرات رزقا لكم فلا تجعلوا لله أندادا وأنتم تعلمون. Who has made the earth a resting place for you and the sky as a canopy, and sent down water, rain, from the sky, and brought forth through it, meaning through that water, fruits as provision for you. Then do not set up rivals to Allah, which means shirk, to make someone equal to Allah, in worship while you know, meaning that He alone has the right to be worshipped and He alone created everything. So if He alone created everything, then He alone deserves the worship without anyone else who didn't create anything, as Allah said in the Quran and many other places. قال ابن كثير رحمه الله تعالى, one of the scholars of tafsir, explanation of the Quran, who has a very nice tafsir, but it's not for the beginners, called Tafsir ibn Kathir, Tafsir al-Quran al-Azim. Imam ibn Kathir rahimahullah said, الخالق لهذه الأشياء هو المستحق للعبادة. The one who created these things is the one who deserves to be worshipped. And worship generally means to humble oneself to Allah by respecting Him and loving Him, through doing what He said and leaving what He said to leave in a way that He prescribed. That is one definition of ibadah. It means to ibadah, worshipping Allah, means basically obeying Him. It means to humble oneself to Allah by loving Him and respecting Him, through doing what He said to do and leaving what He said to leave in a way that He prescribed, that He wants. So we can give examples of ibadah. For example, to believe in Allah correctly, the way He likes that we believe in Him, is ibadah, is an act of worship. The greatest ibadat are the ones that take place in the heart, before the body moves even. For example, to pray to Allah at the times that He said to pray, and the way He said to pray is ibadah. To treat your parents well even if they are not Muslims, because you fear Allah, is ibadah, is an act of worship. To treat your wife correctly how Allah likes is ibadah. Or your husband if you're a lady. To control your eyes where you look and where you don't look is ibadah, because you want to please Allah. For example, someone next to you is sending a text message to someone. Not to look into that message and to force yourself not to look is ibadah. Why? Because your brother has right to privacy. So many things, many small things can be made big through your intention to get close to Allah, if it is what He likes and what He said to do. And the same applies to leaving things. So if you leave something for Allah, this is also a great ibadah, if it is what He likes. Another definition of ibadah is anything that Allah likes, from actions and statements, in our hearts or with our body, that Allah likes and He is pleased with. So anything Allah likes, for example, Allah likes that we don't do something, that is ibadah if we don't do it, like I said. To contain yourself when you're angry, not to say bad things to your brother or wife or husband or parents, because you fear Allah, is ibadah. So there are many types of ibadah, some of them are more important than others. And the greatest ibadah is tawheed. Tawheed means to only worship Allah, to know His rights, and to only worshipping means obeying Allah and doing what He loves, which means leaving what He hates. That's why it's not correct for someone to pray much and fast much between him and Allah, and say things and do things between him and people that are very bad and they hurt those people. It is not ibadah in that sense. So he may have ibadah between him and Allah, but between him and people, he doesn't respect what Allah said. And that, of course, is a big sin. In fact, those things can nullify the other ibadat, acts of worship that he may have done. Because Allah said in the Quran, in Surah Al-Baqarah, يا أيها الذين آمنوا لا تبطلوا صدقاتكم بالمن والأذى. He said, O you who have believed, do not make your charity and whatever you have given in sadaqah become invalid, batil, through your tongue, through man, which means reminding people that you have done it for them, and other, which means hurt. So this is a very important ayah that proves that things you do through your tongue can nullify things that you do for Allah, because you are hurting the people. And we have much evidence. We have a hadith in which the Prophet ﷺ was asked about a lady who prays and fasts and does many good things, but she harms and hurts her neighbors with her tongue. And he said she is from the dwellers of the hellfire. So we have to watch our tongue. It's very dangerous. For that reason, ibadah, every member or every body part has an ibadah, has an act of worship. The Sheikh continued, rahimahullah, وَأَنْوَاعُ الْعِبَادَةِ الَّتِي أَمَرَ اللَّهُ بِهَا, and the types of ibadah with which Allah ordered us are many. مثل الإسلام, like Islam, wal-iman and iman, wal-ihsan and ihsan. We will now explain what they mean, inshallah. وَمِنْهُ الدُّعَاء. And from ibadah is dua, to call upon Allah only. Wal-khawf, and to fear. Does it mean that if you fear a dog, you're doing shirk? It doesn't mean that, because this is called natural fear. So for example, a person may fear a certain human being or an animal, that they may cause him some harm. That is not in itself shirk, doesn't mean that you fear them like you fear Allah. But it is better if one wants to perfect his tawheed to leave it, if it is possible. Because if we know that only Allah can do harm or bring us any benefit, then we stop worrying about other people and we do what we are required to do to protect ourselves. That is why the scholars said it is not good to say if it were not for the security, we would have been killed or we would have been attacked or something like this. We should say if it were not for Allah, then security. Even in what we say, we can approach shirk or fall into it. So from it also raja, which means to hope from Allah only. Wat-tawakkul, to rely on Allah only. Wal-raghba wal-rahba, and to fear and hope. Wal-khushu', and to have awareness of Allah. Wal-khashya, to have fear with knowledge. Wal-inaba, to turn to Allah. Wal-isti'ana, and to seek help from Allah. Wal-isti'adha, and to seek refuge. Wal-istighatha, which means to seek assistance. Wal-dhabh, which means to sacrifice to Allah alone. Wal-nadhr, to give vows. وغير ذلك من أنواع العبادة التي أمر الله بها كلها لله تعالى. And other than that, from types of worship which Allah ordered us to do, all of them must be dedicated only to Allah. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for that is the saying of Allah the Most High, وَأَنَّ الْمَسَاجِدَ لِلَّهِ فَلَا تَدْعُوا مَعَ اللَّهِ أَحَدًا. And indeed, the mosques are only for Allah, so do not call upon anyone with Allah. So dua, to call, to make supplications, is not allowed for a Muslim to do except to Allah. فَمَنْ صَرَفَ مِنْهَا شَيْئًا لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ فَهُوَ مُشْرِكٌ كَافِرٌ. So whoever directs any of that to others than Allah, then he is a mushrik, which means he has done shirk, made someone or something equal to Allah. Kafir means he has left Islam. And this can happen only after they know that what they are doing is kufr, and they know it without any interpretation, and they're not forced into it, and they intend to do it, meaning they didn't make a mistake, or they didn't say something because they made a mistake. وَالدَّلِيلُ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for that is the saying of Allah, وَمَنْ يَدْعُ مَعَ اللَّهِ إِلَهًا آخَرَ لَا بُرْهَانَ لَهُ بِهِ فَإِنَّمَا حِسَابُهُ عِنْدَ رَبِّهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يُفْلِحُ الْكَافِرُونَ. Which means in English, and whoever invokes or worships besides Allah any other God, of whom he has no proof, then his reckoning, his account, is only with his Lord. Surely the disbelievers will not be successful. وفي الحديث, and we have a hadith that says الدعاء مخ العبادة. The dua is the brain of the worship. And the scholars of hadith, who are the specialists to whom we go when we want to know if any hadith is authentic or not, we call them in Arabic muhaddithun, and hadith means statements and actions of the Prophet ﷺ. The scholars of hadith, many of them consider this hadith to be not authentic, and they say that there is an authentic hadith that says ad-du'a huwa al-ibadah, that dua, supplication, is the worship. So if anyone says to you or to us that dua is not part of ibadah, we say no, we have a hadith and we have ayat. Ayat means verses of the Quran that show that that is not correct, that dua is not ibadah. It's one of the greatest ibadat, acts of worship. والدليل قوله تعالى وقال ربكم ادعوني أستجب لكم. And the proof is the saying of Allah, and your Lord said, call upon me, I shall answer you. إن الذين يستكبرون عن عبادتي سيدخلون جهنم داخرين. Indeed, those who feel proud to worship me, they shall enter the hellfire in humiliation. So Allah said that, He said, call upon me, then He said, those who feel proud to worship me. So He connected dua and ibadah. That means that dua is part of our ibadah, our worship. وَدَلِيلُ الْخَوْفِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. And the dalil for the fear is the saying of Allah, فَلَا تَخَافُوهُمْ وَخَافُونِ إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. Then do not fear them, but fear me if you are true believers. وَدَلِيلُ الرَّجَاءِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. And the dalil of hope is the saying of Allah, فَمَنْ كَانَ يَرْجُو لِقَاءَ رَبِّهِ فَلْيَعْمَلْ عَمَلًا صَالِحًا وَلَا يُشْرِكْ بِعِبَادَةِ رَبِّهِ أَحَدًا. So whoever hopes to meet his Lord, then let him do righteous deeds and not associate anyone in the worship of his Lord. وَدَلِيلُ التَّوَكُّلِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى. And the dalil, the proof of tawakkul, relying on Allah alone, is the saying of Allah, وَعَلَى اللَّهِ فَتَوَكَّلُوا إِن كُنتُم مُؤْمِنِينَ. And rely only on Allah if you are true believers. وَقَالَ وَمَنْ يَتَوَكَّلْ عَلَى اللَّهِ فَهُوَ حَسْبُهُ. And Allah said, whoever relies on Allah and puts his trust in Him, then He is sufficient for him, enough. And of course I want to make a reminder and say that tawakkul doesn't mean that we don't do what we are supposed to do in order to achieve our aim. So for example, scholars say, who wants to eat, he can't sit and say, I do tawakkul, and he doesn't cook or doesn't order food or doesn't do anything to bring the food and to prepare it. And who wants children, he doesn't say, I do tawakkul, and he didn't get married. He says, Inshallah, Allah tawakkul, and we have children. The same way, anything we want to do, we have to do what we can to achieve it and ask Allah to help us achieve it. This is the true tawakkul. This is from tawakkul, from relying on Allah. Because Allah forced the Prophet ﷺ, who was much better than us and he is the best of mankind, to do many things in order to achieve the aims that were required to be achieved. Even scholars said the true tawakkul is shown in the fact that even the miracles with which prophets came, they were required to do something by themselves in order for Allah to bring the miracle. So Musa alayhi salam, as you know, was required to throw the stick. Allah could have made that stick change it into a snake without him doing it. But he wants to show us that even a miracle requires him to do something. So for that reason, it's not correct for us to sit and do nothing and say that we are doing tawakkul. And Umar ibn al-Khattab radiallahu anhu used to say, those who sit and rely on people to feed them, they're not doing tawakkul. He said they're doing tawakkul. Tawakkul in Arabic means that you are hoping others will feed you. And that is not correct. Like someone says, I need money and I hope Allah gives it, and he does nothing, doesn't work, doesn't study, doesn't acquire any skills to earn his living, or doesn't try to work without skills, for example. At least to do some physical work to earn his living. That is not correct. So that I wanted to make a note of. وَدَلِيلُ الرَّغْبَةِ وَالرَّهْبَةِ وَالْخُشُوعِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for fear and hope and being aware of Allah is the saying of Allah, إِنَّهُمْ كَانُوا يُسَارِعُونَ فِي الْخَيْرَاتِ وَيَدْعُونَنَا رَغَبًا وَرَهَبًا وَكَانُوا لَنَا خَاشِعِينَ. Verily they used to hasten, to rush, to do good deeds, and they used to call on us with hope and fear, and used to humble themselves before us. وَدَلِيلُ الْخَشْيَةِ, and the proof for fearing with knowledge is the saying of Allah, فَلَا تَخْشَوْهُمْ وَخْشَوْنِي, then do not fear them, but fear me. وَدَلِيلُ الْإِنَابَةِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for turning to Allah is the saying of Allah, وَأَنِيبُوا إِلَى رَبِّكُمْ وَأَسْلِمُوا لَهُ, which means, and turn to your Lord and submit yourselves to Him. وَدَلِيلُ الْإِسْتِعَانَةِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for seeking help is the saying of Allah, إِيَّاكَ نَعْبُدُ وَإِيَّاكَ نَسْتَعِينُ, only you do we worship and only you do we seek help from. وَفِي الْحَدِيثِ إِذَا اسْتَعَنْتَ فَاسْتَعِنْ بِاللَّهِ, that when you seek help, then seek help from Allah. وَدَلِيلُ الْإِسْتِعَاذَةِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for seeking refuge is the saying of Allah, قُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ الْفَلَقِ, I say I seek refuge with the Lord of daybreak. وَقُلْ أَعُوذُ بِرَبِّ النَّاسِ, and say I seek refuge with the Lord of people. وَدَلِيلُ الْإِسْتِغَاثَةِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for seeking assistance is the saying of Allah, إِذْ تَسْتَغِيثُونَ رَبَّكُمْ فَاسْتَجَابَ لَكُمْ. Remember, he said to the Sahaba, when you were asking your Lord, and he replied to you, meaning helped you and assisted you. وَدَلِيلُ الذَّبْحِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for slaughtering only to Allah is the saying of Allah, قُلْ إِنَّ صَلَاتِي وَنُسُكِي وَمَحْيَايَ وَمَمَاتِي لِلَّهِ رَبِّ الْعَالَمِينَ لَا شَرِيكَ لَهُ. The saying of Allah, saying, indeed my prayer and my worship and my life and my death all belong to Allah, the Lord of the worlds, who has no partner. وَمِنَ السُّنَّةِ لَعَنَ اللَّهُ مَنْ ذَبَحَ لِغَيْرِ اللَّهِ, and the proof from the Sunnah is the saying of Allah, Allah has cursed the one who slaughters to others than Allah. وَدَلِيلُ النَّذْرِ قَوْلُهُ تَعَالَى, and the proof for giving vows only for Allah is the saying of Allah, يُوفُونَ بِالنَّذْرِ وَيَخَافُونَ يَوْمًا كَانَ شَرُّهُ مُسْتَطِيرًا. When he praised the believers, he said they fulfill their vows and they fear a day, or the day, the evil of which is widespread or will be widespread, which is the day of judgment. So inshallah we stop here, because here where we finished the first asl, the first principle, and we will hopefully continue next week. Same time, 7 o'clock inshallah on Sunday. If you have any questions that I can answer or corrections, you're very welcome. Otherwise, we meet next week, inshallah. Yes, brother.
No, I'm not sure if I heard you properly when you said somebody accidentally does dua, not intentionally, that is shirk or something like that.
What I meant was that to call someone a mushrik or a kafir, you can only do that after they know that what they are doing is wrong. So we have many ahadith that show that if he made a mistake or he didn't know what he was doing or he had another excuse, then he can't be called a kafir or a mushrik. For example, the man who lost all of his food and drink with his camel in the desert and he thought he would die. Then he went to sleep and when he woke up he found the camel next to him. So what he said was kufr. He said, "Oh Allah, you're my slave, I'm your Lord." No one doubts that he said kufr. But the Prophet ﷺ said, أَخْطَأَ مِنْ شِدَّةِ الْفَرَحِ, because he was so overjoyed, he made a mistake. He wanted to say what? The other way around. He wanted to thank Allah and say, "Oh, I'm your slave and you're my Lord." And he was so happy that now I will be alive and my food is back and my drink is back. He said the other way around. So this hadith shows that if someone says something or does something and he has an excuse, then he can't be called mushrik or kafir. Another hadith we have is, these are all in Bukhari and Muslim, very strong hadith, is that man who said to his children, "When I die, burn me and scatter my ash, some of it over land, some of it over the sea." So they did it. And he said before he died to his children, because if Allah is able to bring me back, then He will punish me severely. And to say, to doubt that Allah is able to bring you back is kufr. So then Allah said to the land, "Gather his ash." And it gathered. Allah said to the sea, "Collect his ash," gathered, and he became a man. And the Prophet ﷺ said, then Allah said to him, "What made you do what you did?" He said, "I was afraid of you." So He forgave him. And he said kufr. He was doubting that Allah. But he had an excuse, which was that he was very afraid of his sins, that Allah wouldn't forgive him because he committed too many sins. And that is why the scholars say that anyone, before you can call him mushrik or kafir or even fasiq, yani someone who does something haram. You say, for example, "Brother, do you know that ghiba is haram?" He says, "What is ghiba?" You say, the Prophet ﷺ said, ghiba means to mention your brother with what he dislikes. He says, "I didn't know that." Then we say, "Inshallah, Allah forgive you and there is no sin." But from this point he knows. Then he doesn't have that excuse that he didn't know. Or someone, he buys a drink that he doesn't know has alcohol. He drinks it. Like one brother texted me, he said, "We're going to Umrah, we bought some drink on the way and it made me feel funny." So I said, "Brother, if it made you feel funny, don't drink it." He said, "But it says no alcohol." I said, "I don't know. Allah Alam. But if there is alcohol and the person didn't know, then of course Allah said, وَمَا كُنَّا مُعَذِّبِينَ حَتَّى نَبْعَثَ رَسُولًا. We do not punish anyone until we send a messenger. So for that reason the scholars said that there are certain principles we follow, in that if we can even call someone a sinner or a kafir or a mushrik, or even to say he made a mistake. If he didn't know, that's not considered to be a mistake. Because the sin is, and the kufr and shirk comes, when the person knows that what he is doing is wrong, and he does it. That is what I wanted to say in relation to mushrik and kafir. Technically, if someone does kufr and shirk, you can't call him mushrik and kafir until they know that what they are doing is kufr and shirk. Or for example, someone does bid'ah, innovation, but he thinks it's sunnah. I know a brother who used to be from the Shia. So alhamdulillah, Allah guided him to sunnah. And he said that he used to think that the people of sunnah are enemies of the sunnah. He used to think that the Shia are the only good people, because that's how he was brought up. And his sheikhs and everyone told him that. Then when he started communicating with the people of sunnah, he realized that actually Shia are the enemies of the sunnah. Because he didn't have any information before. And slowly he became convinced that what he was upon was wrong, because he was sincere. And he didn't want any of this world. He wanted to follow the right path and to please Allah. So alhamdulillah, Allah saved him from that, and he became from Ahlul Sunnah. But he said that we thought always that Ahlul Sunnah are the enemies of Sunnah. We considered them kuffar, all of them, non-Muslims. We considered them, it's good to kill them, he said. Because their sheikhs told them, if you kill one Sunni, you go to Jannah. You go to Jannah, you go to paradise. So he didn't know. If he dies in that state, Allah will not punish him. Why? Because he doesn't know. Until he knows that what he is doing is wrong and goes against what Allah said. That's why the scholars said that there are certain conditions for calling someone or doing takfir or saying someone is a mushrik or kafir. And this is alhamdulillah found in the books of our scholars. There are conditions for that, and there are things that prevent us from doing that, and it's found in the books of the ulama like Ibn Taymiyyah rahmahullah. He wrote a whole big book called Kitab al-Iman to explain that point. And also we have ulama, the scholars of today, for example in the explanation of Kitab al-Tawheed by Sheikh Ibn Uthaymeen, he speaks about this point at length and explains that when we say that someone is a mushrik or kafir, we don't mean he's by himself mushrik or kafir. He even says it's not allowed to do until he knows what he's doing is kufr or shirk. But what he does or says can be called and should be called kufr or shirk if it is. So we have large groups of Muslims who may do something wrong, whether it is kufr, shirk, bid'ah or haram. For example, someone listens to music. We say, brother or sister, music is not allowed. He says or she, I didn't know. We say, then inshallah you're not sinful. Someone doesn't pray, but from this point you must know that it's not allowed, for example. Someone doesn't pray. We say, brother, it's not allowed not to pray, it's haram. It's one of the biggest sins, because this shows your iman, your belief. He says, I didn't know. Because I know people who didn't know before, that to pray 5 times is obligatory. They are from countries that didn't have much knowledge. They used to think that to pray 5 times is good, mustahab, but not obligatory. The same people used to believe that drinking alcohol is not haram. It's makruh. So I know brothers, myself, who used to fast. When they break the fast in Ramadan, they drink for iftar. Why? Because they thought it's not haram. All of these things, all Muslims agree they are haram. And to pray 5 times is we must. 5 times a day and night. Alcohol haram. they used to believe that to have a girlfriend is halal. This is another kufr. To believe that to commit zina is halal is kufr. But they didn't become kuffar. Why? Because they didn't have knowledge. But once the person has knowledge, then of course that's different. Yes, brother.
So basically, so the Hindu who dies, or the Rafid who dies, there's a possibility that Hindu and Rafid can go to Jannah. Is this what you're saying?
No. Because any person who died without knowing the true message of Muhammad ﷺ, the Prophet ﷺ said, on the day of judgment, Allah will send them a messenger. And if they respond to that messenger, they will go to Jannah. Because there is a possibility that someone never... Do you really believe, brothers and sisters, that now what people see on television screens is Islam? All they see is killing. They say, MashaAllah, Islamic State, so-called. Yeah? First of all, it's not even a state. They don't have a state. And it's not to do with Islam. Yeah? So anyone who watches it, and he is very far from Muslims and from Islamic teachings, if he thinks this is Islam, and he says, I don't want this Islam and I don't want to be a Muslim, he dies. He didn't really know the message of Muhammad ﷺ. So Allah will send him a messenger. Do we really know if he knew or not? No, it's between him and Allah. So we consider him, he is a kafir in this world. But where he is going to Jannah or paradise or hellfire, if he knew what Islam is about and he rejected, hellfire of course. But if he didn't know what Islam, real Islam is, or people who call themselves Ahmadiyya or Qadianis, they say we are Muslims. They call people to so-called Islam. And they say there is a prophet after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. That is kufr clearly. Means that Allah didn't say the truth, a'udhu billah. The Prophet ﷺ didn't say the truth. So they present themselves as Muslims. So someone says, this Islam I don't like. Because they say there is a prophet after Muhammad ﷺ. He didn't accept this Islam. Or he may accept this Islam and he doesn't know that this is not Islam. So his hukum is with Allah. Did he really know? Did he have the power to explore and he didn't? Could he read, write and so on? That's between him and Allah. That's why the issues of takfir are very important issues, and they are only for the senior scholars, especially doing takfir of individuals by name. We can say who does this he has committed kufr and shirk. But to say someone by name is a kafir, it's very scary to say that, because you're saying he will never be in Jannah. If he's married, his wife is haram. He can't live with her anymore. Straight away they must separate. He cannot be buried with the Muslims. He cannot inherit and be inherited from. Many ahkam. So that is only for the scholars. For the very, very senior scholars who know and who fear Allah. That's why no one does takfir except a big scholar, or the scholars say, or someone who doesn't have any knowledge and he doesn't have any aql. What takfir is a very dangerous thing. So I hope it answers.
Sorry, just to clarify for myself.
Yes, brother.
So you're saying so until the messenger is sent to them, so even on the day of judgment, a messenger will be sent to them in the form of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Is this what you're saying?
I didn't say in the form of the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, but Allah sent, He will send a messenger. And the person who, of course, hasn't seen the messenger or hasn't understood the message of Islam correctly, the message hasn't reached him, of course. There is a difference of opinion in our time and before. I know scholars now who say that, khalas, the message has reached everyone. There is no excuse for anyone. So if anyone dies, he's a kafir. He dies in a state of kufr. He had the chance to look and search and so on. But there are ulama of our time who say no, because the message propagated on the TV and everywhere is not really the message of Islam. I agree totally with that. So, like I said, and I don't want to repeat myself, so they between them and Allah, but they kuffar, if they die in the state of kufr, do they go to Jannah or not? That's between them and Allah.
And there is certain number of shuyukh, if you say the kufr, if you don't feel it as a kufr, the kufr is coming to you. And this is one thing. There are other things. And
if you say kufr, then
you see.
See kufr.
Do the kufr or do
Yeah.
the shirk.
Then
if you don't say it is a shirk and kufr, is coming.
you're
to
a kafir, you mean?
No. It's coming to you, the sin and
Ah.
that. You have to stop it. You have to tell them. This is one thing. The second thing.
Is it a correction or a question?
No, there's questions.
Hmm.
This is some of the hadiths on
Okay.
this. And another thing, when you see some brothers, when you do some bid'ah or do something shirk, like you mentioned the brother Shia was, and his, when you tell them to, this is not in Islam, this is not in Sunnah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, this is in bid'ah, you shouldn't do it. And if he understand after that, and if you give them the evidence, actually the evidence from Quran or Sunnah, still they doing it. What you concern with that person?
That's not up to you, and it's between him and Allah.
Yeah.
If the person understood what you said, but he has maybe some interpretation which prevents him from accepting what you're saying, maybe he thinks that you're not knowledgeable enough. Or we, all of us, I mean. I may speak to someone like many things happen to me personally. So I said to someone, this is not allowed, brother. He said, are you Mawlana? Meaning that, are you knowledgeable enough? So first I used to say, no, I'm not Mawlana. So he said, that's it then, Assalamu alaikum. If you're not Mawlana, you can't talk. Then I realized that I'm actually teaching them Mawlana's Arabic. So I'm not Mawlana, I am the Mawlana of the Mawlana. So next time I said something, I mean some, I don't mean that some Mawlana have knowledge, but I mean some who don't know Arabic, they come and used to learn Arabic from me. So next time I said something, he said, are you Mawlana? I said, no, I am bigger than that. He said, how is that? I said, I'm teaching the Mawlana Arabic. So he said, MashaAllah, okay, Sheikh, you can talk now. So I told him what I wanted to say. And he said, okay. At least he listened, because before he didn't want to listen. So that's one thing that may prevent him from accepting what we are saying, because he thinks we are nobodies. Who are you anyway? Who did you learn from? That's between him and Allah. If he knew what you're saying is true, he has nothing to prevent him from accepting, of course he's sinful. And every hadith and ayah that goes against bid'ah and mubtadi' applies to him. But if he has something that prevents him from, and is that excuse valid or not? Very often it's not valid excuse. Because most of our brothers, they speak nicely to them. Most brothers who are on the sunnah, they speak nicely to them. So if a person who does bid'ah or haram doesn't accept after it has become clear to them, then they run the risk of being kept upon that path by Allah, because they don't want to accept the guidance, and dying upon that even. The first question was that if you see kufr or shirk and you don't correct it, yeah? Of course, this applies not only, brothers, to kufr and shirk. It applies to any haram, because kufr and shirk is the biggest haram. The Prophet ﷺ said, whoever sees from you munkar, something that is not allowed in Islam, then let him correct it with his hand. And if he can't, then let him correct it with his tongue. And if he can't, then let him correct it with his heart, which means to hate it in his heart. And he said that is the weakest of belief or faith. In another narration or hadith it says there is nothing after that. There is no faith after that. Or there is no mustard grain seeds weight of iman after that. So this means what the scholars said, if you have authority in a certain situation, you have an obligation to change it with your hand, by saying change it. Meaning that you change, you give an order for this to be changed. For example, in your family. In your families, you must have the authority as a man, because Allah has given it to you. Then you change it with your hand. In other situations, you may not have that authority, so you may say with your tongue. So that applies to kufr and shirk. Because the Prophet ﷺ, as you know, in Mecca, when he was in Mecca, he was not able to change much with his hand. And he didn't allow his Sahaba to do anything with their hands. Even when they put the intestines of a camel, they couldn't remove it. They were scared. Just to do that small thing. And only his daughter removed it, because his daughter is his daughter. She can get angry. He couldn't, alayhi salam, there were 360 idols, very many idols around the Kaaba. He used to come pray near the Kaaba. He couldn't remove the idols. Only when he conquered Mecca in the year 8 after Hijrah, 13 plus 8, 21 years after he started the da'wah, could he change and remove those idols. Why? Because he was fearing for himself and for his companions. For that reason, if we don't have the opportunity, what he was doing was he was speaking against the gods. That's why they said, the Quraysh, we give you anything, just don't say bad things about our gods. Stop your da'wah. We give you wives, if you want money, wealth, gold, silver, we make you our Amir, just stop. He said, no. This is what Allah told me. So to change kufr and haram through your tongue is much easier than through your hand. But if you can't speak even because you fear to be imprisoned or to be beaten or to be killed, or your job to be taken away from you, for example, then it is permissible, the scholars said, for you to hate it in your heart. That's what the scholars mean, that if you don't change it at all, you don't even hate it, then of course it may come to you, because you stop hating haram. And that is the danger of living in non-Muslim countries, brothers. Because so much haram is around you that you stop hating it. Adhan what time?
17.
No.
If you see some people doing bid'ah,
Yeah.
they are ashkar, and they are allowed to pray behind them.
Yes, a person of bid'ah, as long as his bid'ah is not kufr, the scholars say you are allowed to pray behind them. Kufr means if they say shirk akbar, kufr akbar, if they say you can do dua to the Prophet ﷺ, you can make dua to people, this is kufr akbar, shirk akbar. You can't pray behind them. But if their bid'ah doesn't reach that, then you're allowed to pray behind them, and as far as I know, that's consensus of all ulama of Salaf and Ummah. And Ibn Taymiyyah rahimahullah used to say, who says you can't pray behind mubtadi' is a mubtadi'. Why? Because he goes against the way of the Salaf. The Salaf used to pray behind mubtadi' and whose bid'ah, whose innovation didn't reach kufr. So you can pray behind them, but of course if you can find the Sunnah Masjid is better. Now. جزاكم الله خيرا سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت.
ليس الغريب غريب الشام واليمن إن الغريب غريب اللحد والكفن إن الغريب